Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Spilling Tea. I am your host, Tiffany Daniels, and today we are once again taking a look at the Judge Rotenberg Center. We're going to be going over an FDA Executive Summary coming back from April the 24th, 2014. This is a 126-page document, so we're just going to go through a few of these pages a day and kind of split it up so that you're not overwhelmed. Now, in each of these videos where we're going to cover this summary, I am going to go ahead and make sure to include the link to the document in the description box for you, as well as the change.org petition link so that you can sign the petition to go ahead and just close this center down. So let's get started. So this states FDA Executive Summary. Prepared for April 24th, 2014 meeting on the Neurological Devices Panel, Electric Stimulation Devices for Reversive Conditioning. Here's our table of contents. We're going to be going through, as you can see, quite a bit. Okay, so introduction. The FDA is considering issuing a ban on the electronic stimulation devices, ESDs for aversive conditioning that are intended to deliver a noxious electrical stimulus to patients exhibiting self-injurious behavior and aggressive behavior. This includes only devices under aversive conditioning devices regulation. Class 221 CFR 882.5235. Aversive conditioning devices were on the market prior to the passage of the Medical Device Amendments on May 28, 1976. In 1979, they were classified as Class 2 devices regulated under the Pre-Market Notification 510K process, Section 3.1. The FDA has conducted a comprehensive review of the available information regarding ESDs for SIB and aggressive behavior and is concerned that they may present a substantial and unreasonable risk of injury. Risk of illness or injury. Therefore, the FDA is considering banning these devices under Section 516 of the FD&C Act. The FDA is convening this advisory panel meeting to seek scientific and clinical expert opinion on the risks and benefits associated with other treatment options, the risks and benefits of ESDs for aversive conditioning, and on whether these devices present a substantial and unreasonable risk of illness or injury. The Center for Devices and Radiological Health, CDRH, has previously banned one device, prosthetic hair fibers. To help in your assessment of questions that will help inform whether the FDA should ban ESDs for aversive conditioning, this document presents the following information. Section 2, Banning Criteria, provides the criteria for banning a device. Section 3, Regulatory History, provides a discussion of regulatory history and a description of the device technology. Section 4, Clinical Background Information, provides an overview of self-injurious behaviors and aggressive behaviors in persons with intellectual or developmental disabilities and the benefits and risks associated with alternative treatments. Section 5, Benefits and Risks of ESDs for Aversive Conditioning, provides the results of the FDA's systematic review of the scientific literature and other additional information with respect to the risks and benefits associated with these devices. Section 6, Ethical Considerations with particular focus on issues related to clinical studies, provides a discussion of the ethical considerations with particular focus related to clinical studies with the device. Section 7, Summary, provides a summary of information contained in the executive summary and the context for which the panel will be asked questions. Number 2, banning criteria. 2.1 FDA Authority to Ban Devices. Section 516 of the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act authorizes the FDA to ban, by regulation, any device intended for human use that presents substantial deception or an unreasonable and substantial risk of illness or injury. We are seeing panel input related to the unreasonable and substantial risk of illness or injury component of the banning standard. We are not asking the panel any questions related to substantial deception. The FDA regulations provide that when determining whether risk or illness or injury is substantial, the FDA will consider whether it is important, material, or significant in relation to the device's benefit to the public health. Actual proof of injury to consumers is not required. Although FDA's banning regulations do not set forth a standard for reasonableness, the agency in the past has explained that to determine reasonableness of a risk associated with use of a device, it will analyze that risk relative to the state of the art and the potential hazard to patients and users. Evidence to ban a device. The statutes and regulations require the FDA to consider all available data and information in making a banning determination. This information can include data obtained under other provisions of the Act, information supplied by manufacturers, and any other information submitted voluntarily. Labeling requirements. Before banning a device, the FDA must make a specific determination that substantial deception or unreasonable and substantial risk cannot be eliminated by a change in the labeling for the device. According to the statute, if FDA finds that the deception or risk can be corrected or eliminated through labeling, FDA must notify the manufacturer of the need for revised labeling and provide a specific period for manufacturer to implement the revision. For instance, the FDA can require labeling to include a specific statement, notice, or warning presented in a specific manner and form. If the manufacturer fails to implement the change within the period specified by the FDA, the agency may initiate the banning process. Applicability of the ban to devices in distribution and use. If the FDA decides to proceed with banning these devices, it must determine whether to apply the ban to the devices already in commercial distribution, to those already sold to the ultimate user, both or neither. In other words, the FDA may limit the ban only to devices in future distribution, or it may also apply the ban to devices already in commercial distribution, but not yet in use by patients, or it may apply the ban to already being used by patients. Banning process. In order to ban a device, the FDA must go through notice and comment rulemaking, which requires a proposed rule, consideration of comments, and a final rule. Before initiating the banning process, FDA may consult with relevant expert panel of medical device advisory committee. The FDA may declare a proposed regulation to be effective upon its date of publication in the Federal Register if the agency determines that the deception or risk of illness or injury presents unreasonable, direct, and substantial danger to the health of the individuals, and notifies the manufacturers of the device of this special effective date prior to publication of the proposed rule, and provides an opportunity for an informal hearing on the proposed regulation. This special effective date procedure may be used when the FDA determines potential or actual injury involved is a serious one that the FDA believes will endanger the health of individuals who have been or will be exposed to the device. The FDA need not find that danger is immediate. It is sufficient that the danger may involve serious long-term risk. So let's sum up everything that we just read here in regards to the banning criteria. To sum it up all in a nutshell, what we had to be able to prove in order for the FDA to move forward in regards to banning the device is that it includes a risk of illness or injury. basically we had to, let me go on their wording, sorry. Brain dead today. Okay, presents substantial deception or unreasonable and substantial risk of illness or injury. So they didn't want to go on the deception side, which fair enough. In the devices in and of themselves were not the deception. That's on the JRC, in which case the FDA really can't rule on that side of things. What they can rule on is if there is an unreasonable and substantial risk of illness or injury due to the device. So that's the criteria that they have to hit, and that's kind of the process that they have to go through. We're going to read a few more pages, and we'll just kind of sum everything up before we go. Let's go back to where we were. Okay. Regulatory history. Device classification. Aversive conditioning devices were on market prior to the passage of the Medical Device Amendments on May 28, 1976. As such, these devices were included in the FDA's original device classification efforts. As discussed in the proposed rule for original classification of these devices, the original identified risks to health associated with aversive conditioning devices were worsened psychological condition. The patient's mental condition may become worse if aversive conditioning is administered incorrectly or if the patient is not carefully selected for this treatment. There's also PTSD in regards to the JRC. Another subject, electrical shock. Leakage current from the device may injure the patient. Patient injury. An aversive shock applied to the patient may be harmful or lethal if excessive current is used or if it's applied incorrectly. So when you got an electric shock that is 10 times more powerful than a police taser, you can see why they started looking into this. The proposed rule also cited 4 literature references: Butterfield, 1975, Johnson, 1970, Logan and Turnage, 1975, and Thorne, 1975. The original neurological device classification panel recommended that aversive conditioning devices be classified into Class 2 because the panel believed that electrical hazards associated with use of the device could be managed with performance standards. FDA concurred with the panel's recommendation, and after receiving no comments on the proposed rule, the classification was finalized in 1979. Aversive conditioning devices were identified in the classification regulation as an instrument used to administer electrical shock or other noxious stimulus to a patient to modify undesirable behavior characteristics. As Class 2 devices, aversive conditioning devices are regulated under the pre-market notifications 510(k) process. Pre-market notification requires that new or significantly modified devices being introduced into the U.S. market show only that they are substantially equivalent to an existing legally marketed device of the same type. The 510(k) process involves a comparison of a new device to a predicate device rather than an independent demonstration of the new device's safety and effectiveness. Couple more pages. 3.2 Cleared devices. Cleared devices and indications for use. The first 510(k) cleared aversive conditioning device was cleared in 1976 using a device marketed prior to the Medical Device Amendments as a predicate device. Subsequent to this clearance, 5 other devices received clearance under this classification. Table 1 describes the 4 cleared devices that are generally indicated to treat self-injurious behavior, SIB, in patients that are usually diagnosed as autistic or with intellectual and developmental disabilities. These devices are cleared as prescription devices, which means that the federal law requires sale of the devices be by or pursuant to the order of the professional licensed by the law of the state in which he or she practices. The two other devices that were cleared under this device regulation are for use in smoking cessation and nail biting. And however, the FDA is not seeking input from the panel regarding smoking cessation and nail biting because they present fundamentally different patient populations with different potential risks and benefits that do not raise the same concerns. To the best of the FDA's knowledge, there is currently only one entity in the United States, the Judge Rotenberg Center in Massachusetts, that has recently manufactured and is currently using ESDs for aversive conditioning. JRC is currently using the devices the GED 3A and GED 4 that have been modified from the FDA cleared device and have not received FDA clearance or approval in violation of the FD&C Act. The GED 4 has an average output current that is almost 3 times that of the FDA cleared GED device. Israel et al. 2008. The ban that the FDA is considering would apply to these devices as well as the FDA cleared ESDs. Think about that. So the device they're using is 3 times more powerful than what they've approved of before, 10 times more powerful than a police taser. Yeah, there was a reason there was a demand for this particular carrying. All right, couple more pages. So this is the table they're talking about. So we have the stimulator sonic control whistle stop as aid in modifying unacceptable behavior which is socially or physically injurious to the client. It is to be used only where an ethical treatment design, which the eventual goal of therapy is to eliminate the undesired behavior, and the use of shock is strictly followed. The device is not for sale to control people. The SIBIS, you've heard this before in some of the other documents I've gone over with you about the center. Self-injurious behavior inhibiting system, Oxford Metalog Inc. For the treatment of the retarded or autistic clients. We don't use that word anymore. Who exhibit headbanging behavior of sufficient intensity and frequently to cause acute or chronic physical damage. The device should be used only in patients where other forms of therapy have been attempted and failed. The CB's remote actuator, human tech, to treat self-injurious behavior that does not involve blows to the head sufficient to trigger the acceleration sensor. Some examples are eye gouging, skin pinching, hair pulling, and jaw banging. GED, the Graduated Electronic Decalator, Judge Rotenberg Educational Center, for treatment of patients usually diagnosed as retarded or autistic who exhibited self-injurious behavior of sufficient intensity and frequency to cause serious damage to themselves. The device should be used only on patients where alternate forms of therapy have been attempted and failed, which they didn't. We've all seen that. Technical characteristics of cleared devices. As discussed in Section 3.2.1 above, the FDA has cleared 4 ESDs for aversive conditioning for the treatment of SIB. The main components of these devices are an electrical stimulus shock generation module, cuteness electrodes, and either a remote monitor module or an automatic mechanism to trigger a stimulus to be applied to the patient. The stimulus generation module is carried by the patient via a waist or backpack, and the electrodes are attached to the patient's skin. The remote monitor emits a radio signal that is uniquely coded to a specific generator module and is controlled by a trained practitioner who determines when it's appropriate to deliver an electrical shock to a patient. An example of the device with an automatic trigger is the SIBIS, Self-Injurious Behavior Inhibiting System, device K853178, in which an acceleration sensor module is placed in a headband worn by the patient. When the sensor detects a blow to the head that is sufficient enough, it triggers an electrical stimulus to be applied to electrodes placed on the patient's body. Here's what that looks like, by the way. God. So, Figure 2, this is the SIB system cleared under K853178. So you see the headband there and the arm thing there. The electrical shock delivered to the patient varies in intensity and location among the various cleared devices as shown in Table 2 below. Please refer to Section 3.3 for a discussion on how various output parameters can affect pain perception. Table 2. Output stimulus parameters and electrodes for FDA-cleared Esds for aversive conditioning for treatment of self-injurious behavior. Whistle stop. Maximum current 10 mA at 20K. Maximum voltage 200 voltage. Frequency 10 Hz. Pulse width 1.2 ms. Maximum power density 0.02 WCM2. Biphasic waveform, shock duration 0.512 seconds. Dual bottom electrodes on one leg or one arm about 1 inch apart. SIBIS, maximum current 10 mA, no load specified. Average RMS, current 3.5 mA at 20K. Average current we just went over that, sorry. Maximum voltage 200. Frequency 20 kHz, signal modulated at 80 Hz. Pulse width 6.2 ms. Maximum power density 0.16 WCM2. Biphasic waveform, shock duration 0.1 to 0.2 seconds. Uses a sensor module of the head to provide stimulation on the arms. GED, maximum current 29.4 mA at 5K. Average current 12 mA at 5K. Maximum voltage 150 V. Frequency 80 Hz. Pulse with 3.125 ms. Maximum average power density 1.01 WCM2 at 5K. Monophasic waveform, shock duration 2 seconds. Notice in any of those videos, those shocks went on for a hell of a lot longer than 2 seconds. On the extremities, such as the inner or outer surface of an arm or leg, or the feet bottoms or palm of the patient. It may also be placed on the upper 3/4 of the buttocks and the lower back, or the right side on the upper chest or back. As reported by the FDA submission, note that the average power density is associated with the potential for skin burns. This safety parameter was assessed in the FDA review of these devices. Warnings include to never place electrodes on the chest or head and never place electrodes to allow current flow through the chest. Warnings include the following. Never place electrode on the patient so that the stimulus current could pass through the chest cavity, and never place the electrode on the chest, breast, genitals, head, top of foot, the lower quadrant of the buttocks of a patient, or any area of its skin known to be usually sensitive in that patient to skin irritation or subject allergic reaction in that patient to contact stainless steel. Instructions are also provided to inspect the skin under the electrode frequently and no less than every 6-hour period of use, and to inspect more frequently in cases of frequent stimulus application or as indicated by a patient's prior history of skin irritation. Alright, we're going to read this last little blurb and we will come back to this tomorrow. I don't want to keep you too long. Esds for aversive conditioning and pain perception. This section describes how different device characteristics can affect the perception of pain created by Esds for aversive conditioning and how this perception may vary among individuals treated with Esds. It should be noted that patient impressions induced by electrical stimulation provide a uniqueness that may not be observed with other types of aversive stimuli. That is, the electrical stimuli applied to the same sensory location can give a acuteness sensation of intensity, touch, prick, itch, or sharp pain, but also provide emotional or affective feeling of discomfort or unpleasantness. sickness. Intolerable, agonizing, horrible. Delita et al. 1992. Tashiro and Hagishima. I probably butchered that. Sorry. 1981. Determining the degree to which the Esds or aversive conditioning can cause certain levels of pain intensity and unpleasantness is challenging, and the purpose of this section is to explain this complexity by describing some of the known device and individual patient characteristics that have been shown to affect shock perceptions. It can be noted that the data provided below is based on studies of individuals without disabilities. In an article by Alain 2013, the author states that there is a widely held belief in the peer-reviewed literature that individuals with autistic spectrum disorder are insensitive to pain or have a high pain threshold. However, the author challenges this belief and instead proposes that there is a strong possibility that not all children with ASD express their pain in the same way as a neurotypical child would. Thank you! Finally some coherent common sense. Thank you! Cry, moan, seek comfort, etc., which may lead to misinterpretation by caregivers and medical professionals that patients are insensitive or an incorrect belief that a child is not in pain. The author recommends further research to study pain expression in individuals with ASD. Thank you! Thank you, Jesus. Finally. Alright, folks, that covers like the first 11 and a half pages of a 126-page summary. So I'm going to basically kind of round it up here. So basically what we ended up covering today is what exactly they need and what they look for when the FDA is going to go in to ban a device like this. It goes over what electrical shock devices that they have accepted over the years, gone over their voltage, all of that information. It's also towards the end of it's talking about pain perception and this false equivalency, this idea that autistics, we have this incredibly high tolerance for pain. That's not actually true. We don't always show our pain in a way that most people would recognize it. Sometimes it comes out as anger. My pain threshold is very, very, very low. And all autistics can basically tell you that we're all hypersensitive to touch. For some, touch is extremely painful. I happen to like touch. I like to be hugged. I like to give hugs. But for some of us, it's extremely painful. You get where I'm going with this. So, I like the fact that they addressed that there at the end. We're going to go over more of this, but I do want to go ahead and cut out now. Because if I don't, I'll read through the whole thing, and we'll be here for 5 hours. And we've got some videos on YouTube to watch and stuff to cover today. So we'll go ahead and end it here. Now, I will once again be making sure that you have access to this document in the description box of this video. So please make sure to click on that. I'm also going to be including a link to the Shut the Judge Rotenberg Center Down petition on change.org. So please take the time to sign this petition. It's extremely important. These kids are in danger. Now, to close this out today, we don't get very many views on this small little channel of mine, and a few views that we do tend to get removed from time to time. So folks, if you'd be so kind, please don't forget to hit the like button, hit subscribe, and as always, don't forget to hit the comments. I do appreciate your time this afternoon, and as always, we here at Spilling Tea hope you have a good one. Bye-bye.